What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where every single Monday I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content that I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking Bring It to the Table Episode 3 that aired during WrestleMania week. I only just caught up on it literally last week. It aired a week and a half ago, like the Thursday before Mania, but I was busy packing. We left on Friday. I had no time to watch it over WrestleMania weekend. Was busy when I got back from catching up on all the stuff I missed over WrestleMania weekend, so I didn't watch it until like a week later. But it was still good. I mean, I enjoyed the second episode. I talked about the second episode maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago here in the show, and I think it was 3 weeks ago I talked about it, but it was a vast improvement over the initial episode, the premiere show, which was not good really at all, or at least the execution of it. This one, we're back with Corey Graves, JBL, who's in the news right now for the bullying of Mauro Ranallo, and what happened on the second episode of Bringing It to the Table a couple weeks back when a screenshot of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a poll was brought up of Mauro Ranallo beating JBL, best commentator in wrestling right now. JBL got hot, pun intended. I know they have the whole segment on the show called Got Hot, Get Hot, whatever, don't get hot. And apparently caused Mauro Ranallo to quit. So as I record this, I do not know too much about that, but kind of a shame if true. But at any rate, this was filmed, recorded, whatever, on the site of WrestleMania 33, which I was in attendance for, amazing show, at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando on the Thursday before Mania, as I said before. The first topic they talk about is AJ and Shane. They bring up a clip of Corey saying the week before that AJ and Shane was just not for him. And mind you, this was before the match took place. And Corey said he had to talk with Shane at 205 Live the following week regarding his comments on the match. And that was all that was said. He did not disclose what Shane said to him directly, but it was interesting to hear that. But like I said, this took place on the Thursday before Mania. AJ and Shane would end up going out there and having one of, if not the best match of the night at WrestleMania. So in the opening slot, no less. So great stuff from them. They would prove me, Corey, and many other people wrong. Their first official topic is Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles, speaking of whom. And they're talking about how AJ said on Sam Roberts' podcast about a month or so ago, a couple weeks ago, that he was offered to come back for a one-off match at WrestleMania for a match against AJ Styles. And he turned it down, and that was it. And the fans went crazy on Twitter thinking the match could have happened if he accepted. He said no. I'm in the boat that I'm completely okay with it not happening. I think the match would have been amazing, don't get me wrong, but Michaels retired 7 years ago. If he did not come out of retirement 3 or 4 years ago to face Daniel Bryan, the man he trained, or quote-unquote trained, way back in the day, I think William Regal was actually responsible for that, but at any rate, if he wasn't going to face Daniel Bryan a couple years ago, he was not going to face AJ Styles, so it was not meant to be. JBL says he respects his decision, and Corey Graves says that he is heartbroken. He didn't say no pun intended, which is funny. The Heartbreak Kid, get it? I thought that was cool. But anyway, they talk about New Day hosting WrestleMania. JBL says he compares it to Hulk Hogan hosting WrestleMania 30, which was great, I thought. And the whole botch of the Silver Dome versus the Superdome. Great stuff. Corey Graves says it's a big opportunity for them. And it was. I mean, it's not going to really boost the stock of the New Day, but I think they gained a lot more from hosting WrestleMania than they would have being in a throwaway match, like the tag title match or whatever. They talk about Cena and Nikki versus Miz and Maurice, the build to that bout at WrestleMania, and how great it was heading into the show. JBL says that they talk about blurring the lines, which is absolutely true. I guess he had talked to Nikki, or maybe it was Corey, I don't know. But they talk about how Nikki had said there was some animosity there between her and Maurice, which you would know if you follow the reports a couple years ago of Maurice reportedly getting blocked from coming back. Pretty much what she said on SmackDown a couple weeks ago about reportedly getting blocked from coming back to WWE because of the Bellas, her along with Kelly, and Maria. So to say there's real animosity there, I think would be an understatement. I'm sure they don't hate each other, but I'm sure there was an issue between the two at one point many years ago. And JBL does make the side comment very quickly, calling John Cena the greatest of all time on the microphone. And Rosenberg just kind of agrees just to go ahead, but I don't know if I would agree with that. Cena has become quite the great mic worker, especially in recent years. To call him the greatest of all time, though, I wouldn't exactly say that, but he is pretty good. Again, JBL didn't say that as a point, like Cena is the greatest of all time. He just kind of said, Cena, what a great line, greatest of all time, whatever. So it kind of says that he kind of said it as a throwaway comment. Anyway, they talk about the women's evolution. between Raw and SmackDown, which brand had the better women's division, if SmackDown did indeed have the better women's division between the two. JBL say, both of them say that SmackDown has the better women's division due to a deeper roster. And Corey says even despite being on Raw, he feels like he's been watching the same 4 women on Raw for quite a while, which is not inaccurate whatsoever. Thank God they have Emma in the mix now and so many others, but he is not wrong in saying that. They talk about Neville. Corey Graves says, this is a buy or sell segment, I think. Corey Graves says, or yay or boo is what it's called. Corey Graves says 1,000 times yay, to quote him. Neville's been fucking killing it as a heel. I'm so glad they turned him heel. Hopefully he never turns back babyface. The guy's fucking awesome. And JBL said himself, absolute money. He describes Neville, and that he was finally thrown into his element as part of the Cruiserweights. They talk about the SmackDown Live Tag Team titles not being defended at WrestleMania, which I'm shocked they brought up, but it was a good point. JBL, being a SmackDown guy, says it sucks, and he compares the Usos to the Rock and Roll Express. The Usos have been around for 7 years now. I don't know if they're the greatest tag team of all time, but they are up there. The Usos have been together for a long time, being brothers. They should never be split up. Have had a ton of success. So, to relate them to the Rock and Roll Express might be a bit of an exaggeration, but not too much of a stretch. But anyway, Corey Graves says yay. He says the fact they're not being defended at WrestleMania is a good thing, if only from a timing standpoint, but just because if they had another match, that would be 14 matches at WrestleMania, which would have been fucking overkill. It was already fucking overkill as it was, with 13 matches, 3 even being on the kickoff show. The show didn't end until well after midnight. So, again, I think Corey Graves was justified in saying that. They talk about social media, yay or boo. Graves says it's done more good than harm. In terms of promotional purposes. He brings up Zack Ryder as an example, having his YouTube show, and JBL brings up hacking and why it's not good for that reason, which has happened before. He brought up the one incident where the WWE's Twitter accounts and social media accounts were hacked. I think after TakeOver or after the Rumble. I think it was Rumble weekend a couple of months ago. And, that stuff is so rare. It happens quite a bit, but I think the good does outweigh the bad with social media, in my opinion. They talk about the Hall of Fame. I guess WWE put up a poll on their Twitter account, maybe right after the previous Bring It to the Table special aired on the network, about who should go into the Hall of Fame first. I think it was The Rock, Miss Elizabeth, Vader, and Eric Bischoff. The Rock obviously won. The Rock should be in the Hall of Fame, don't get me wrong, but they're just waiting for the biggest... he's the real last money draw for the Hall of Fame, for people to be drawn into buying tickets to the Hall of Fame. And there's other people, but no one is as big of a draw as The Rock is, at least right now. So I understand why he's not in yet. And he probably also has not wrestled his last match, which is probably why, again, he's not in yet. Otherwise, he probably would have gone in this past weekend, or last weekend, whatever, the weekend before last in Orlando. Miss Elizabeth should absolutely be in there. Why she's not, I have absolutely no clue. Eric Bischoff will be in there eventually. Vader should be in there right now, especially given his health issues, but, be that as it may. And Corey Graves brings up WrestleMania 7 as one of his favorite moments between the Warrior, Savage, and Miss Elizabeth. I do indeed agree it was a great moment. They talk about the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. JBL says that he wishes he was on the kickoff show, citing that 5 million people watched the pre-show last year. So the most watched show, platform, whatever the WWE has each year is the WrestleMania kickoff show. I don't know where he got the number from. He didn't give his sources. Corey Graves says that it's all about what the talents make of the Battle Royal. Being put in the Battle Royal, giving everyone a shot at WrestleMania is all well and dandy, but it's what they make of the Battle Royal. And I could not agree more. They also bring up who should win it, and they bring up Mojo and maybe Gronk getting involved. They say what surprise entrance will be involved this year, and they bring up Gronk being Mojo Rawley's friend, and they show footage of the two getting hyped up on Twitter or whatever, getting ready for the match. And that was before it became known. It wasn't until the match happened that we found out Gronk would get involved. So that was interesting. That kind of foreshadowed that. Then we transition into the Don't Get Hot segment. JBL talks about Jim Cornette being a genius. He talks about him potentially going off with the WWE Hall of Fame, which he did not, which is a good thing. I think it wasn't about Cornette. It would have been funny if he did, but I thought Cornette's speech was great the way it was. He talks about Hornswoggle. I thought they would go off on Hornswoggle, something that Hornswoggle said in the shoot or whatever. Apparently not. They just talk about him hitting Swoggle with a trash can lid. I think a trash can, not even the lid, at 24 in that same building 9 years earlier when JBL faced off against Fit Finlay in a opening match at Belfast Brawl at 24. A great match, by the way. So watching that footage of him just really, for lack of a better term, bullying Hornswoggle is really not good timing considering the heat that he's in, the hot water that he's in right now with Mauro Ranallo and other people he's been bullying on Twitter and other shit like that, Justin Roberts. JBL is not sitting pretty right now. And then he talks about he talks about everyone's disdain for Roman Reigns, which was the big soundbite from this episode. He says, again, a lot like he said the last time, where he's defending Roman Reigns. Reigns is doing his job. Everyone stands up for Reigns. And Rosenberg said that we chose Reigns to be the next guy. And I think he is right to an extent, but I don't think we chose him to be the next guy right now. Like, my big issue with Reigns, this is a whole other video for another day, but my big issue with Reigns is not who he is or him as a wrestler. He's great. Reigns is awesome. It's just that he was put in a position to really fail from the get-go. They pushed him way too hard, way too quickly. Just a victim of bad timing. Right guy, wrong time. Really is what it was 2 years ago. And because of that, it went all downhill from there. And he's had some glimmers of greatness, like when he won the WWE title in, I think, Pittsburgh in December of 2015. But other than that, he's been largely booed by the WWE Universe. So I think turning him heel would be the right solution, but they haven't done that, and they probably won't, but whatever. They talk about WrestleMania Monday being the most anticipated day of the year aside from WrestleMania. Corey Graves brings up that he expects the crowd to be crazy, and they were on Monday. Not as crazy as they were in past years, but still pretty crazy. Or rowdy, raucous, whatever the right word they want to use, and that's probably for the better. I know they chanted obscenities at Roman Reigns at the start of the show, but other than that, they weren't chanting like shit. The crowds did a couple years ago after WrestleMania. I remember a women's match where they were chanting "You suck, Cena" at like Nikki Bella and shit. Like that's awful. I don't care how much you hate those people. That's pretty awful. So I'm glad they didn't do that this year. They talk about Graves and JBL. They make their predictions. They really want Nakamura to be called up, and he was. Not on Raw, but on SmackDown. So that was pretty fucking cool. Greatest debut in quite some time. That was just amazing. Rosenberg brings up new Undertaker Pumas, shoes, sneakers, whatever. If you want to go get them, I guess they're a Foot Locker or something, so check those out. They're pretty cool, but I don't think I would ever buy them. They're probably a fucking, just a load of money, by the way, too. They didn't mention the price, but I'm sure it's a fucking shitload of money. They talk about musical performances at WrestleMania 33. Flo Rida performing, whatever. They talk about the heat between Vin Diesel and The Rock. Graves makes a very bold statement in saying that The Rock brought back Vin Diesel brought him back from irrelevancy and made him relevant again through the Fast and Furious movies. I can't say if that's true or not. I think Vin Diesel was still pretty established and still pretty relevant even before Rock came into the Fast and Furious picture. I know he was doing the fucking pacifier and shit about 10 years ago, but I would still say that Vin Diesel was pretty relevant even before The Rock came into the picture. So I don't know if I can agree with that. Graves made a lot of great points on the show, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. I don't pay too much attention to movies or the shit involving Vin Diesel and The Rock and that whole feud for whatever the hell it is. So I wouldn't really know, but that kind of struck me as odd and inaccurate. But again, I might be wrong. They talk about the 30th anniversary of Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Randy Cruz and I talked about that on the Cruise Control podcast a couple weeks ago if you want to check it out. Great anniversary. They talk about TakeOver. They praise it. They bring up the Dallas special from last year. That was the highlight of WrestleMania weekend and WrestleMania 32 weekend. And it should be a great show. And it was a good show. Probably the weakest, the weakest NXT show I've ever been to, including house shows, but still a pretty good show. And they closed it out with the WrestleMania finale, what should close the show on Sunday. Graves says Orton and Wyatt, just purely because Orton won the Rumble. Wyatt's the WWE champion. So from a traditional standpoint, that's the match that should close the show. Thank God it didn't, because it fucking sucked. I agree with him, but the match was awful. So I'm so glad. I mean, Reigns and Taker, which is what JBL says, should close the show. And I'm glad it did just because it was Taker's final match. And that match was not that much better, but it told a way better story than whatever the hell fucking Orton and Wyatt was. That match sucked. And then Rosenberg says that Goldberg and Lesnar should close the show. Of course, this was before it became kind of known. I mean, even at that point, even on the Thursday before Mania, a lot of people kind of figured that Mania 33 would be the final Mania for Taker. But, so I agree, even though the match was not as good as Goldberg and Lesnar, for as perfect as that was for the 5 minutes it was given, Taker and Reigns needed to end, considering the ending and what they did with Taker and the fact he kind of faded off and descended into the stage and all that other cool shit. So I think they made the right call in having that close the show. But that was WWE Network and Chill, Bring to the Table episode 3 from the Thursday before WrestleMania, March 30th, I want to say was the date on that one. So check it out on the network. I would put it on par with the second episode. Again, a few head-scratching moments with like Roman Reigns, that comment, the Vin Diesel thing, but that's purely nitpicking. On the whole, pretty enjoyable episode. I think it was about 40 minutes. Definitely longer than the previous two, I'm pretty sure, but it was good, even though it's outdated at this point. It's after WrestleMania. I watched it after WrestleMania. I enjoyed it. So if you were kind of stuck up in all the WrestleMania madness and everything surrounding WrestleMania a week and a half ago, 8 days ago, whatever, and you didn't get a chance to watch the show, check it out on the network right now. And next week we will be back with another all-new episode of WWE Network and Chill, talking about what I have no idea. It's a surprise to me as much as it is to you. So we'll find out then. But in the meantime, and in between time, folks, follow me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/grams@gsm.matthews. And find me right here on YouTube by liking the video, leaving a comment, sharing the video, and subscribing as well. All that support is strongly appreciated. So that being said, guys, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy Monday Night Raw tonight. And I'll catch you guys down the road. See you next week, guys.